Before Dragon Ball, Toriyama was already a self-made millionaire due to the success of his Dr. Slump manga within the pages of Weekly Shonen Jump. Way back on July 20th of 2015, I released an edition of Dragon Ball In Depth about Dragon Boy, a two-part, short-lived manga by Toriyama that he released in between Dr. Slump and Dragon Ball as sort of a precursor to Dragon Ball, featuring a lot of the elements that would become familiar to all of us in the series. Well, like Yoda said in The Empire Strikes Back, there is another. That's right. Another very obscure manga that Toriyama released in November of 1983, which also served as a huge precursor and inspiration to Dragon Ball. It's called The Adventures of Tongpoo, and as he tends to do, you won't believe the kind of concepts that appeared in this manga first that Dragon Ball made famous, and that is the topic of this edition of Dragon Ball In Depth.
この放送はご覧のスポンサーの提供でお送りします。
In the early 1980s, Toriyama's serialized Dr. Slump manga propelled him to household name status in Japan among manga readers and made him a millionaire. Although we do not have an exact time when Toriyama and his editor Kazuhiko Torishima began to discuss Dragon Ball in its infancy, we do know it was a suggestion from Torishima. Other than just doing Slump, Toriyama worked on other projects such as one-shot manga and the Dragon Quest video game series as the primary character designer. Before jumping into writing Dragon Ball, Toriyama dabbled in two stories that would set the primary framework of the series, both of which a year before Dragon Ball began. Both of these stories would provide the elements that shaped Dragon Ball. Dragon Boy ran as a two-shot story in Fresh Jump in August 1983 and October 1983, and it really set the basis for a lot of the Chinese martial arts influence of Dragon Ball, having shapeshifters, monsters, princesses, and an actual ball with a dragon inside. The other would be Tong Poo Dai Boken, literally translated as Tong Poo's Grand Adventure, but more commonly called The Adventures of Tongpoo, which would be printed just a month after Dragon Boy in the November 1983 Weekly Shonen Jump, but unlike its predecessor, it would focus more on the science fiction iconography that would be carried over into Dragon Ball. A lot of the technological aspects of Tongpoo, such as space exploration, artificial humans, ship designs, and whatnot, would be carried over into Dragon Ball, but perhaps none more important than the Hoi Poi capsules, the magical piece of tech that can shrink gigantic objects into a small container, and they were introduced here first. Plus, unlike the female lead in Dragon Boy, the female lead in Tongpoo, Puramo, is a very early archetype for the character of Bulma. She's young and attractive, and she knows it and uses it to her advantage. The Adventures of Tongpoo begins in space, and right off the hop you can see the Star Wars and Star Trek influences. We see a ship, the 12th ship to be sent out to Earth to investigate alien civilizations on planet number 12. Toriyama would reuse the idea of numbering planets as a naming convention later when it came to naming the planets under Frieza's empire. The cyborg boy Tongpoo, our main character and the only crew member, is awoken and presumes to have already arrived on the planet. Tongpoo immediately cleans himself up, including a machine that wipes your ass. That's right, Toriyama's ass wiper was that far ahead of its time, but that begs the question, why would a cyborg need to take a dump? I mean, I know his name is Tong Poo. Anyways, they find no planet. Could it be?
Totally blown away.
What? How?
Destroyed by the Empire.
The entire Starfleet couldn't destroy the whole planet or take 1,000 ships with more firepower than I've...
So Tongpoo notices the engine is damaged and the ship is about to explode in under a minute. So he scrambles and escapes on a scout craft moments before it blows up, but he ends up stranded in space until eventually landing on a nearby planet with a tropical environment. The curious Tong Poo then began to explore the planet, but before he can, he takes a number of tools and useful survival items out of his capsule, which include a hovercraft. Soon after, he stumbles upon a wrecked spaceship, thereby telling him there was some kind of life on the planet. So what does Tong Poo do? The same thing all of Toriyama's kid protagonists do. Take a naked swim. And he would soon discover he was on planet number 8. He surmises that the craft had 3 members and left Earth 2 years before him, but as expected, no survivors. While exploring the island, however, he hears music and finds a girl. This is Puramo, the Bulma, so to speak, of our story. The two goof around about guns, and then she presumes Tong Poo was there to rescue her, and she reveals that the crew members were killed by an alien in a flash and she survived. Although Puramo is fearful, Tong Poo sees this as an opportunity to steal the ship and escape home. And thus the two ride off to stay at Tong Poo's capsule house, and as they ride off, we see the binary sunset, yet another Star Wars reference. In Dragon Ball, Bulma was the tech genius and Goku was the Neanderthal, but in this story, the Bulma character is just a ditzy girl and Tong Poo is the guy with the cool stuff. So they get to know each other and eat, and the girl reveals she has supernatural powers and uses her powers to bend a spoon. This is Toriyama referencing 1980s con artist Uri Geller, who attained fame for making television appearances claiming to have magical, psychic, spoon-bending powers, and of course, he was a fake. This is a great pop culture reference that almost nobody would remember. Of course, Tong Poo doesn't give a shit, and like Bulma, Puramo tries to seduce him with a sexy outfit and was naturally frustrated by failure. She wants to use this to distract the aliens. The next day they set off and find the alien spaceship, which looks like a giant mushroom. Now we see yet another Star Wars reference here. Is Tong Poo searching for aliens or sand people on Tatooine? Anyways, while this is going on, Puramo sneaks on board causing trouble, planning to use her powers of seduction to take the ship while Tong Poo searches the ship for the controls, but unfortunately he forgot his time bomb, so instead he places the grenade in between 2 giant pieces of ice and waits for it to melt so that the trigger goes off and blows up. I love Toriyama so damn much. So as Tong Poo is escaping, he runs into the boss alien who has the girl. He pulls out his rifle and blasts Tong Poo, but before he eats Puramo, she bites him in the finger and escapes. Meanwhile, Tong Poo, being a cyborg and all, has recovered. So the alien pelts him with more shots, but Tong Poo then gets serious and proceeds to rock this guy's jaw. But just then, the ice melts and he has to dash out of the place as fast as possible with Puramo on his shoulder as the place blows up behind them. But now what? They can't go home because the ship was destroyed. Well, they have a rocket, but it only has room for one, so take a guess as to who gets to sit in it. The Adventures of Tongpoo was a lot of fun to read, and I really wish Toriyama told more stories with this character. Alongside Dragon Boy, Tongpoo was truly the predecessor to Dragon Ball, as many of their ideas would be recycled into it. If you know Toriyama, you know he's never been against stealing ideas from anybody, including himself. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thank you for watching. I'll catch you down the road. So here's a question. Even though Tongpoo came out many years before Toriyama revealed that Goku was an alien, do you think there was some kind of connection there? Well, Quan Man over on his channel has a video that will tell you all about it. Click the link and check it out.